Okay, so 2 years late to the party, and I finally saw Wonder Woman. This film, sandwiched between two very poorly received attempts at connecting the DC Universe in live action, stands as a spectacular work in basically every aspect. Great fight scenes, a dope new soundtrack, and stellar performances from Gal Gadot and Chris Pine. However, superhero films have an unfair stigma surrounding them, a stigma that they're not deep and thought-provoking, and are prone to simplicity. While a lot of superhero films are definitely no Quentin Tarantino production in terms of writing and direction, I absolutely detest the idea that superhero films and shows have little or nothing to say, and that they're always simple. Not only is that elitist as hell, it's usually just straight up wrong. Wonder Woman is one of many examples I can name just from the DC stuff I've seen that proves that theory wrong. Now, many may have been inclined to feel that a Wonder Woman film will simply serve to break stereotyping and empower women. That is the common perception on Wonder Woman, at least. While she definitely does a lot of that with all the insane shit she does throughout the film, Patty Jenkins, Zack Snyder, Jason Fuchs, and Alan Heinberg were not content to keep the film narrowed in on a gendered angle. Wonder Woman 2017 takes our main heroine on a journey through the Western Front towards the end of the First World War. On the surface, the idea seems simple. Wonder Woman helps the Entente win, saves the world, and everything is good. Yet Diana's upbringing and perceptions on the world are consistently challenged throughout the film. Her journey throughout the movie emphasizes that nothing in the world is black and white. Nothing as simple as good and evil, as victim and aggressor. A recurring theme of this film is the rejection of simplicity. We see this in the very early stages of the film. The Mascarans are taught that women were created to settle the hearts of men, yet barely half an hour into the film, Themysciran Queen Hippolyta refuses to send aid to an outside world full of suffering, prioritizing her own home front instead, and forbidding Diana to return for doing her duty towards the world. Furthermore, one of our first introductions to the corrupted world of men showcases female scientist Dr. Maru, aka Dr. Poison, concocting deadly gases for the German war effort, even going as far as human experimentation on her fellow German officers. Immediately, the notion of women being uncompromisingly good and attempting to civilize warmongering men is thrown out the window. The message being that all of humanity is implicit in its own suffering. Men are not naturally violent, nor are women naturally good. The people Diana meets along the way in the regular human world at the warfront also challenges her thoughts on conventional good and evil. Chief, a Blackfoot Native American, is another victim of the various wars of displacement instigated by the US to take and control land inhabited by his tribe. In his own American context, he is presumably a victim of aggression by a larger power. Yet we are reminded that Chief's agency had not gone anywhere. His story is not that of victimization, and instead of lamenting his fate, he went to Europe and smuggled for both sides of the war effort, perpetuating a conflict in which mostly armies of white men were participating, at least on the Western Front. In this, we avoid the generally harmful noble savage trope, in which Native American and African groups are presented as passive and incapable of doing wrong because of their supposed purity and/or simplicity. This reduces said groups to something less than human, a caricature. Of course, the opposite extreme of that portrayal is displaying those groups as just savage, harmful, uncivilized, less intelligent. In a lot of mainstream media, indigenous groups across the world have been thrown into one of those two categories, pure or savage. In the case of Chief, he is neither. He is just a man who exists and makes his money. He is not aggressive, he's not less intelligent than anyone, but he's also not completely good or noble. And he is aware of what he's doing. He knows what his gun smuggling for both sides of the war will do for that part of the world. This is a staunch reminder that Native Americans throughout the Americas, not just the modern US, have been a part of the history of our countries since the first European landings, both for, against, and in between these relatively new nations. Of course, Native American influence and involvement on modern American nation states is an entirely other topic. Just know that it's more complex than natives simply being victims of European aggression. After he briefly explained to Diana what happened to his tribe at the hands of white Americans, she is left to ponder why he would even follow a man like Steve Trevor. And instead of showing us some corny scene where they act friendly or some scene displaying Trevor's guilt and Chief's forgiveness, we're shown why people follow Steve Trevor through his conduct and his dedication to his mission, rather than being explicitly told why he is friends with a Native American, an Arab, a Scotsman, and a Themysciran woman. That brings us to Samir, a Moroccan Frenchman spying on behalf of France and the Entente powers through his acting skills and intelligence. Samir explains to Diana that he was prevented from being an actor because of his Arabness. You think that he would become vindictive towards French society, but his life continued, and he used his talents for the war effort with the hopes of enfranchisement, as many North African Frenchmen did during the First and Second World Wars in hopes of being enfranchised in French society, or for the eventual liberation of their home countries. Samir's story is another blow for the simplistic idea of us versus them. Even under the most undesirable circumstances, people adapt to the world they live in and attempt to elevate themselves in many ways in hopes of a better future. During the First and Second World Wars, rather than deny their society outright out of indignation, they fought in hopes of recognition, reconciliation, and social mobility. Much like Chief, Samir's role and backstory returns the agency to a character that may have otherwise been portrayed as just another victim. And he also serves a narrative purpose for Diana of blurring the lines of what it means to fight against injustice. Charlie's predicament returns us to the Themysciran views on gender once more. Themysciran's teachings would have informed Diana that the outside world breeds warlike men, yet Charlie displays the human fragility latent in anyone, male or female, related to extended exposure to war and trauma. Charlie has consistent nightmares related to his military service, and is traumatized to the point where he can barely even shoot his gun anymore, and has also become alcoholic. This shatters Diana's Themysciran image of the stoic, savage man just waiting to go to war, going to show that while our society generally encourages manliness and ultra-masculinity, it's mostly an act, and barely anyone can escape the fragility and uncertainty of being human. Finally, when Wonder Woman supposedly beats Ares the first time, she wonders why the fighting hasn't stopped. She was convinced that all the suffering she saw was a result of Ares' tampering. Yet Steve Trevor, in his desperation to explain the predicament, basically said that humanity was not inherently good nor evil, while unbeknownst to her, Ares was still at large. But by that point, the dots had been connected. By the time she fought Ares at the end of the film, she had a better understanding of the world around her, and after she wins, she takes that ideology into her everyday life. She believed that there is both good and evil in people, which signifies all of the lessons she learned on the Western Front of World War I. And even though the First World War ended shortly after she defeated Ares, we know that the Second World War, the Cold War, and other major worldwide conflicts had all still happened between the end of World War I and the modern day that Diana is in. She's concluded that she cannot hope to change humanity, but will do everything in her power to help as many people as possible, which makes her an ideal hero. She does not project her ideals onto others, because that would make her another version of all the forces of aggression she has encountered. Instead, she will fight suffering wherever it appears, much like the heroes who followed after her. Well, thanks for watching if you made it this far, and if you're a regular to this channel, I thank you for your patience between this video and the last. The videos will be infrequent until April, as I said in the Luffy video. I appreciate all your patience and continued support. Take care, everybody.